James Matthews from Sky.
Thanks very much, First Minister. You spoke about not being able to give definitive dates, but of course the one definite date that you have stuck to is the 6th of May, election day. If you don't have the clarity and certainty to say what's safe beyond the end of April, with what clarity and certainty can you say it's safe to hold an election a week beyond April? And second of all, if I could read you a quote, there was discussion about the investigation, the process of it, the fact it was a civil service investigation being conducted by civil servants. That's an account from someone in discussion with you about the investigation into Alex Salmond in your office on March the 29th, 2018. Have they misremembered those details?
That's not an account that I would agree with. I can't speak for somebody else, and I don't know for sure, apart from what you've just told me, exactly whose account that is. But I hope that I'll be before the committee looking at these matters a week today. This is Wednesday, and I'll be able to answer all of these questions in full. I've waited a long time to do so before this committee, so I certainly welcome that opportunity, and I'll be questioned, I am sure, fully and in detail on all of these matters, and I look forward to giving my responses, answering all and any questions, and setting the record straight where I think that is required. So with that, I'm going to move back on to COVID, because this is a COVID briefing and there are other forums where quite properly and legitimately I will be questioned on these other matters. On the election, James, obviously there are things happening just now within the context of COVID, some children back at school, some parts of the economy open, where steps and measures have to be taken to keep them safe or as safe as possible, and that is how an election would proceed. There are many countries during the pandemic that have had elections, and I think democracy is important. But the issues on the election, I can state my view, which is that I think if we can allow the election to go forward on a safe basis, we should do that because of the importance of democracy. These are not just decisions for me. The Parliament has legislation in place that provides a framework for any decisions about the conduct of the election to take place. So I can only give my view. It would be for the Parliament acting on a cross-party basis to make any changes either to the date of the election or the conduct of the election in terms of whether there are changes to the arrangements by which it would happen. Peter Smith from ITV.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, First and Director. Every day you're coming here and you're asking the Scottish people to have faith in your message and to trust you. Now we hear some serious allegations from a former First Minister. This is not someone from the sidelines, a former First Minister who knows the democratic institutions of Scotland, and he's alleging that there is corruption that is undermining the trust that we can have in you and these institutions. You have said, clearly, show us your evidence. Alex Salmond says he would like to, but he's been blocked by the Crown Office. Can you say, has anyone in your government or your staff contacted the Crown Office asking them to censor or withhold vital evidence?
Again, I'll answer this question, albeit this is a COVID briefing, and then I'm going to move back to COVID. The decisions about what the Scottish Parliament publishes and how it publishes whatever it publishes in compliance with the law are matters for the Parliament, for the corporate body. I am not party to these discussions. And the decisions the Crown Office takes in relation to enforcing or upholding the law, and this relates specifically to your question, are taken independently by the Crown Office, independently of government. And any suggestion at all that these decisions are in any way politically influenced are downright wrong. But I would suggest that they go further than that, that they actually start to buy into what is a false and quite dangerous conspiracy theory that has no basis in fact. You refer to allegations made by Alex Salmond. I don't think there is a shred of evidence behind those allegations and the claims that have been made, but Alex Salmond has had the opportunity, today to be in front of the committee and to try to substantiate those allegations. Now, he's declined that opportunity today, I don't think with any good reason, and I hope he comes to the committee in early course so that he can say what he wants, put forward any claims that he wants, and crucially bring forward the evidence. In terms of the submission that the Parliament redacted yesterday, that relates to one part of the committee's inquiry. I don't think it inhibits the questioning of me. The allegations in relation to that part of the inquiry that Alex Salmond is making about me have been widely reported in the media and in the public domain. I have always and continued to be of the view that I will be fully questioned on all of these issues by the committee when I appear, hopefully a week today, fully and in detail. There's no reason why I shouldn't be, and I don't think there's any reason why Alex Salmond should not sit in front of that committee, make whatever claims he wants to make, say whatever he wants to say, and bring whatever evidence he thinks he has to bear. There was no conspiracy theory, and I sometimes think that the preference perhaps of Mr Salmond is to continue to make those claims without ever subjecting them to the proper scrutiny of the Parliamentary Committee looking into them. So I hope he proves me wrong on that by getting himself in front of the committee in early course. And then I look forward to appearing next week. Next week, I think, is the 6th date I've had in my diary to appear before this committee. Every one before now has been postponed by the committee, and the last few because Alex Salmond has not agreed to appear. So I want to get in front of this committee to answer every and all questions that people have of me, to address all the issues that people have, and to rebut, frankly, head on and very directly some of the wild, untrue, false and baseless claims that have been made in recent times. But for now, I'm going to get on with my job of leading the country through COVID, so I'll get back to that.
I appreciate that, First Minister. If I may just ask, though, is there a worry that this inquiry is losing credibility every day, and it is to the detriment of women who may now speak out against powerful men?
I do worry about not just the women in this case, whose voices have been silenced, whose motives have been maligned, who've been accused, or it seems to me to be accused of being liars and conspiracists, and I think that is wrong. They came forward with complaints. The behaviour they complained of was found by a jury not to constitute criminal conduct, and Alex Salmond is innocent of criminality, but that doesn't mean that the behaviour they claimed of didn't happen, and I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that. And when I've said that before, people have said, you're hiding behind the women. I'm not hiding behind anybody. If anything, I'm standing up for the right of women to come forward and for claims to be taken seriously. I can't speak for the conduct or the status or the standing or the credibility of the Parliamentary Committee. That's for the committee, and all I know is I've been waiting for months to appear before this committee and haven't yet had the opportunity. The one final point I would make, and then I am going to get back to COVID, is that this submission that's been in the news yesterday that had to have some redactions for legal reasons, that related to the aspect of the committee that is looking at whether or not I breached the ministerial code. There's actually a separate investigation into that being conducted by the independent advisor on the ministerial code. Now, my assumption is that the advisor has this submission in full because in its initial form, it was actually a letter to him. So he's looking at that without any redactions, I assume, and will be able to take all of that into account. So the idea that scrutiny of me is being inhibited in any way, shape or form is wrong. There is no reason why I can't sit before that committee, answer questions fully, in detail, openly, for as long as the committee wants. And frankly, there's no reason why Alex Salmond cannot do the same. So perhaps he should just get himself in front of it. We can both have our say. People can make up their own minds, and then I'll go on with my job of leading the country through the pandemic and hopefully out of the other end of it. Simon Johnson from The Telegraph.
Thank you, First Minister. On travel, when the stay-at-home message ends on April the 5th, will that be replaced by stay within your council area again or something else? Just following up from your answer to Ross Gubbins, where you said that you hoped from the end of April that the Scotland-wide restrictions on travel could be lifted, although not international travel, but you didn't mention travel within the UK. I just wondered if you anticipate that to end at the same time as inter-Scotland travel or at a later point. And just briefly on the Salmond inquiry, there seems to be some people, including some people within your own party, who believe what happened with Mr. Salmond's evidence is essentially a cover-up. And I wondered what you would say to them. Thank you.
I've already covered that. The issues with a particular single piece of evidence yesterday was a matter, is a matter between the Parliament and the Crown Office. And I'm not party to those discussions, and nor should I be. And I'll say very, very firmly, I understand politics. I've been in politics for a long time. I understand oppositions wanting to hold governments to account and also to engage, as we all do, in the cut and thrust of politics. But let's all be careful here that we don't start signing up to false, damaging conspiracy theories that have no basis in fact, that start to actually unfairly undermine trust in our public institutions. The idea that any decision of the Crown Office around what they do to uphold or enforce the law is politically driven or influenced is just downright wrong, and nobody who is responsible, I think, should be making that claim. And as I've said before, this is about one element of evidence that I don't think inhibits what I can be asked about, and I don't see why it inhibits Alex Salmond's ability to sit before that committee. He's put reams of evidence before that committee, much of it, well, I'll say what I think of it when I get to the committee myself. There's no reason why he can't, there's no reason why he isn't sitting, and no good reason in my view why he isn't sitting in front of the committee right now. I understand he said he'll go later in the week. Let's hope he does, and then we can get all of it out in the open, all of it onto the table. I'll have my say next week, and then people can make up their own minds. And in the meantime, and after that, I'll go on with my job. Christine Lavelle from The Sun.
Thank you, First Minister. It was just to follow up on Helen Puttick's question on schools. Can you just be a bit clearer about when you aim for the full return to be completed? Because the 5th of April date that you announced yesterday falls in the Easter holidays for all of Scotland. And John Swinney has said that the holidays won't be moved. So will you tell children, parents and teachers now that they won't all be back until after the Easter holidays? And also, just how can you justify closing schools again for one day, if not more, for the election at the start of May?
As I keep saying, elections are really not down to my decision alone. You know, I'm being accused a lot at the moment of living in a one-party state, which is rubbish and everything. But election decisions are not just about me. Returning officers decide how elections are conducted, whether they happen in schools or community centres or whatever. And I'm focused at the moment, as is John Swinney, on trying to get to a position where as many young people are back in school on the 15th of March. And then when we know what that will be, we'll be able to say what that means for others going beyond that. But I'm not going to go beyond that today because we're still engaged in that work. Michael Blackley from the Daily Mail.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Some of what you have told us today seems very different to what was in your statement yesterday. Yesterday you said that all parts of the country in level 4 would move to level 3 if possible on April 26th. Today you're saying that some or all parts of the country could actually move to level 2 then. Did you make a mistake yesterday by not offering enough hope to people about what might lie ahead? And also, given it's the first chance to ask you about Alex Salmond, I appreciate you've talked about some of the issues already. Even before events of recent days, Alex Salmond said in his evidence that the government and Crown Office blocking of the release of information amounted to a matter of the shielding of some of the most powerful people in the country who are acutely aware of how exposed they would become if information was released. Douglas Ross this morning described the Scottish Government as corrupt. Have the tools of the state been used to protect your reputation?
Absolutely, emphatically not, and there is not a shred of evidence to suggest that that is the case. I know why Douglas Ross will be making these claims. You know, he's the opposition a few weeks before an election. I don't think that should surprise anybody. But, you know, I do think even opposition have a duty to, you know, have some evidence for the claims that they're making. And Alex Salmond, well, you know, maybe creating an alternative reality in which the organs of the state, not just me and the SNP and the civil service and the Crown Office and the police and women who came forward, were all part of some wild conspiracy against him for reasons I can't explain. Maybe that's easier than just accepting that at the root of all this might just have been issues in his own behaviour, but that's for him to explain if he ever decides to pitch up and sit in front of the committee. And lastly, Richard Percival from the Daily Express.
Thank you, First Minister. Just to follow up on the Alex Salmond stuff, would you be willing to do like a press conference after you've given evidence to make your position clear on this whole saga, basically? Because I know Alex Salmond has sort of previously hinted that he may give a press conference if he wasn't allowed to give evidence. Thank you.
I'm laughing because it kind of feels as if that's what I've been forced to do today. I'll speak to anybody. I've always said I want to speak to the committee in the detail of this first, because I think that is showing respect for the parliamentary process. I am accountable to Parliament and through Parliament to the public. I'm getting very frustrated at the length of time it has taken for me to have my opportunity to come before the committee. And once I've had that opportunity, no doubt others will want to question me, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. You know, what I'd say to Alex Salmond is do a press conference if you like, but don't dodge the committee. Sit in front of the committee on oath, just like I will do, and put forward your views, say what you want to say, and crucially, bring the evidence to back it up. Because in spite of all the, sort of furore over some redactions to one document yesterday, that's the missing bit here, the evidence that backs any of it up. So if you aren't doing it today, how about Friday? And then I'll do it next Wednesday, and we can let people decide.